There comes a moment when your soul grows tired of being everywhere for everyone, and you realize that the power was never in your presence, but in your absence. You've been there, answering every call, replying to every message, showing up when your heart was breaking, giving when your own cup was empty. And still, there were days when your kindness was mistaken for weakness, your generosity taken for granted. But here's the truth no one tells you. The moment you stop being constantly available, the world starts to see you differently. Not because you become cruel, but because you've chosen to protect your peace. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share will not only shift the way you see others, but the way you see yourself. There comes a point in every person's life when they realize that giving without limit does not make you more loved. It makes you more used. And it's not because people are naturally cruel, though some are. It's because human nature grows comfortable with what it does not have to earn. The moment you are always within reach, the moment you respond to every call, answer every question, fix every crisis, you slowly begin to fade into the background of people's lives. They stop noticing the sacrifice because the sacrifice has become routine. And when something becomes routine, it stops being treasured. Boundaries are not walls. They are the frame around the masterpiece of your life. They tell the world, this is where I end, and where you must take responsibility for yourself. Without them, you become a public road where anyone can travel, leave their footprints, and move on without a thought. But when you draw that line, when you step back and decide that your soul is not open 24/7 for every passerby, you change the way people approach you. It's strange how respect works. It rarely arrives when you're overextending yourself. It rarely blossoms when you're bending so far to accommodate others that your own spine aches. No, respect often blooms in the soil of absence, in the rare air of no. When you tell someone you are unavailable, you send a message that your time, your energy, and your spirit are valuable commodities. And anything valuable must be approached with care. The people who truly see you, who truly love you, will not be angered by your boundaries. They will be anchored by them. They will understand that in protecting yourself, you are protecting the very connection you share. Because when you are exhausted, when you are drained, you cannot offer the best of yourself to anyone. You can only give scraps, and scraps are not what real love deserves. You will notice a shift almost instantly when you start saying no. Not the loud, aggressive kind of no, but the calm, firm, steady one. The no that says, I hear you, but I cannot. I care for you, but I must care for myself first. Some people will be startled by this. They will have grown accustomed to the version of you who sacrifices without pause, who sets herself on fire to keep others warm. And when the flames go out, they may shiver, they may protest, they may even accuse you of being selfish. Let them. Because selfishness is taking without gratitude. Self-care is giving with intention. There is a world of difference between the two, and you are not required to destroy yourself to prove your love. You are not required to be endlessly accessible to be worthy of belonging. When you stop being constantly available, you begin to see clearly who values you for your presence and who values you for your usefulness. There's a difference. One is rooted in love, the other is rooted in convenience. And if someone's connection to you cannot survive your unavailability, it was never love, it was dependency. Setting boundaries is an act of faith in yourself. It is declaring that your worth is not up for debate, that your time is not a limitless resource to be squandered, that your emotional well-being is a priority, not an afterthought. And this shift does not just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. You will start to walk differently. You will speak differently. You will no longer apologize for needing rest. You will no longer explain why you didn't answer the phone. You will no longer feel guilty for doing something just for you, because you will have learned that your availability is not what makes you lovable. It is your authenticity, your truth, your presence, when it is given freely, not out of obligation. There is something magnetic about a person who respects themselves enough to say, I can't be there right now. They carry an air of dignity, a quiet strength that others can feel. It's not arrogance, it's self-possession. And those who are drawn to you in this state are not seeking to drain you. They are seeking to walk alongside you. The ones who once took you for granted may start to pay attention. They may notice the difference in how you show up when you've taken time for yourself. Your words may be softer but more deliberate. Your energy may be calmer but more potent. They will see that when you are not constantly giving, the moments you do give become more meaningful. The quality of your presence deepens when it is not diluted by overexposure. In truth, boundaries are not just for you, they are for the health of every relationship you have. Without them, resentment grows. Without them, exhaustion sets in. Without them, love becomes a burden rather than a joy. But with them, there is space for longing, for appreciation, for the quiet joy of knowing that your connection is chosen, not demanded. We teach people how to treat us by what we allow, by what we accept, by what we reinforce. If you always answer at 2 a.m., they will always call at 2 a.m. If you always rearrange your plans for their convenience, they will never consider your plans important. But the moment you stop doing these things, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, you change the unspoken rules between you. You teach them that your time is sacred, that your energy has limits, that your love is deep, but not endless without reciprocity. You may fear losing people when you enforce your boundaries, and you will, but the ones you lose are not a loss. They are a revelation. They reveal who was here for you and who was here for what you could do for them. It will hurt, yes, but it will also heal, because the space they leave will be filled with those who meet you with mutual respect, who understand the balance between giving and receiving, who see you not just as a source, but as a soul. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when the old habit of overextending whispers that you are letting someone down, that you are failing as a friend, a partner, a parent, a colleague. But pause and ask yourself, what about you? Are you letting yourself down by always being the safety net for others while no one is the safety net for you? Boundaries are the answer to that imbalance. You do not have to announce them loudly. You do not have to defend them endlessly. You simply have to live them consistently. Over time, people will adjust. Those who cannot will drift away, and those who remain will love you more fully because they will see you as a person, not a service. Boundaries birth respect because they draw a clear line between what you give and what you keep. They remind others and yourself that you are not infinite in capacity, but you are infinite in worth. And when your worth is recognized, not because you are always available, but because you are always true, the relationships you build will not just survive, they will thrive. There comes a time when words are no longer necessary, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally realize that not everyone is willing, ready, or capable of hearing you. You could spend hours explaining your heart, your decisions, your boundaries, and still there will be people who twist your meaning to fit the story they've already decided to believe. That is why silence is not weakness. Silence is wisdom. We grow up thinking that if we explain ourselves clearly enough, people will understand. That if we choose the right words, the right tone, the right timing, we can change the way they see us. But some ears are closed before you even open your mouth. Some minds are made up before you even present your truth. And in those moments, your explanations are like pouring water into a sealed jar. It doesn't matter how pure or clean the water is, it will never get in. There is a quiet power in simply stepping back, in choosing not to argue with someone determined to misunderstand you, in choosing not to defend yourself against a charge that was never about truth in the first place. Silence removes you from battles that cannot be won because the battlefield itself is tilted. And when you stop explaining, something shifts, not just in the way others see you, but in the way you see yourself. You begin to understand that your peace is more important than their approval. You begin to realize that your life is not a courtroom, and you are not obligated to be on trial for your choices. You do not have to convince anyone of your worthiness. It takes courage to walk away from the need to be understood. It takes maturity to stand in your truth without broadcasting it in all directions. This is not about pride, it is about protection. Every time you explain yourself to someone unwilling to hear you, you hand them another thread to pull, another weapon to turn against you. But when you stand silently, they have nothing to twist. They are left with only your absence, and that absence will speak volumes. Silence can be unsettling to those who have grown used to your constant explanations. They may accuse you of being cold, detached, unfeeling, but silence is not the absence of care. It is the presence of self-control. It says, I know what I believe. I know why I made my choice, and I will not spend my life begging for your permission to live it. In your silence, you create space. And in that space, truth often rises without your help. Time reveals what arguments cannot. The very people who doubted you may find themselves seeing the truth you refused to shout, not because you forced them, but because silence gave them room to see what noise would have hidden. Silence is not about retreating in fear. It is about advancing with wisdom. Think of the ocean. It is most powerful not when it crashes violently against the shore, but when it pulls back quietly, gathering strength, preparing for a wave that will reshape the coastline. That is what silence can do for you. It gathers your energy. It protects your dignity. It allows you to respond, not react. We often believe that if we are silent, we will be forgotten. But silence can make you unforgettable. Words are everywhere. People hear them all day from everyone about everything. But silence is rare. Silence is noticed. When you refuse to argue, refuse to defend, refuse to over-explain, people take note. They may not say it out loud, but they feel the weight of it. And often, they fill the silence with their own reflection. In silence, you protect yourself from the exhaustion that comes with justifying every choice. You keep your energy for the people who have already proven they deserve it. You no longer scatter your truth like seeds on barren ground. Instead, you plant it where it will grow, inside your own heart, inside relationships built on mutual understanding. Sometimes silence is the only language some situations deserve. When gossip rises, let it echo without your voice. When assumptions fly, let them soar without your hand guiding them. When judgment comes, let it pass through the air without clinging to your spirit. Silence can't stop people from speaking, but it can stop their words from becoming your burden. And here's the secret. Silence has its own way of speaking. It says, I am no longer playing this game. I am no longer giving you my energy. I am no longer willing to prove to you what I already know is true. In silence, you find yourself again. You hear the sound of your own thoughts without interruption. You realize how much mental space was once filled by defending yourself. And in that newfound quiet, creativity returns. Joy returns. The voice that matters most, your own, becomes clear again. There will be people who will not understand your silence, and that is fine. There will be people who push harder, provoke more, hoping to get a reaction. That is where the discipline lies, in not breaking your quiet just to satisfy their need for conflict. Silence is not about winning an argument. It is about choosing not to play the game at all. It will feel strange at first, this quiet, especially if you have lived a life of over-explaining, of smoothing over misunderstandings, of making sure everyone is comfortable even when you were not. You will feel the urge to fill the silence with words, but with time you will see how freeing it is. You will see how much more peace you have when you no longer hand out pieces of your truth to people who only intend to throw them back. Silence will teach you patience. It will teach you to trust the natural unfolding of events. It will show you that not every story needs your commentary. Not every misunderstanding needs your correction. Not every opinion about you needs your response. The world will still spin without your constant explanations. The people who love you will still love you without your endless justifications. And the truth will still be the truth, whether or not you speak it out loud in that moment. When you learn to trust silence, you also learn to trust yourself. You stop fearing that you will be erased if you do not defend your place. You stop believing that your worth is tied to how well you can make others see you. Instead, you rest in the knowledge that you already know who you are, and that is enough. That is the gift of silence. It doesn't just speak louder than explanations. It speaks directly to your soul, reminding you that your peace is your power, and you don't have to spend it to prove a point. When you stop being endlessly available, something miraculous happens. You start to feel the hours in your day again. For so long, your time hasn't been yours. It's been stretched thin across other people's needs, stitched into the fabric of their schedules, poured into cups that never seemed to stay full. You've moved through life like a clock with no hands, constantly ticking but never really telling your own time. Then one day you make a change. You say no to a request. You let a call go unanswered. You decline an invitation that would have left you drained. And suddenly you find yourself with an empty space in your day. At first, it feels strange, almost uncomfortable. You're so used to being in motion that stillness feels like a mistake. But then, like the sun slowly breaking through a heavy sky, you realize you have just reclaimed a piece of your life. Time is the most precious thing you own, yet it's the easiest thing to give away without thinking. You hand it over in minutes, in hours, in days, not realizing how quickly it vanishes. And unlike money, unlike possessions, time will never return once it's spent. But when you step back from constant availability, time begins to return, not because the hours themselves come back, but because you stop letting them be stolen. You begin to notice mornings again. You make your coffee without rushing. You hear the sound of your own breath as you sit in quiet. You remember what it feels like to have a moment with no agenda, no one pulling at you, no clock running you down. That kind of time is not just measured in minutes, it's measured in presence. The more you protect your time, the more intentional you become with it. You stop cramming your schedule with obligations that have no real meaning to you. You stop saying yes just to avoid disappointing someone. You stop filling every gap with noise. And in that empty space, you discover things you thought you'd lost. The joy of reading without distraction, the peace of walking without hurrying, the simple pleasure of doing nothing at all and feeling no guilt about it. Time returning to you is not about having fewer responsibilities. It's about refusing to carry responsibilities that aren't yours. For years, you've carried the weight of other people's emergencies, other people's mistakes, other people's endless needs. And while helping others can be beautiful, it becomes destructive when it leaves you with no time for your own life. When you draw a line, when you tell someone, I can't help you right now. You're not abandoning them. You're allowing them to stand on their own feet, and you're allowing yourself to stand on yours. There's a quiet transformation that happens when you start living in your own time. You stop feeling like life is racing past you. You stop living only in reaction to what others want. You start choosing how to spend your hours instead of letting them be chosen for you. You start to see that your time is your life. It's the canvas on which you paint your memories, your dreams, your rest, your growth. And if you give every brushstroke away, you'll have nothing left that truly belongs to you. When time returns to you, you notice how much of it you once wasted on people and situations that gave nothing back. You see how often you rushed for no reason, how often you rearranged your life for someone who would not have done the same for you. And while that realization can sting, it also heals, because now you know better. Now you know the value of your hours. You start to invest that time differently. You pour it into things that make your heart fuller, conversations that lift you up, work that inspires you, moments that strengthen you. You take back mornings for your own rituals, evenings for your own peace, weekends for your own joy. You stop letting guilt convince you that everyone else's schedule is more important than your own. And here's the beautiful thing. When time comes back to you, life slows down enough for you to truly live it. You notice the way sunlight hits the floor. You savor the taste of your food instead of swallowing it between tasks. You find space to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. You begin to hear the dreams you buried under layers of busyness. You begin to remember the things you once promised yourself you'd do when you had time. Well, now you have time, and the more you protect it, the richer it becomes. Because when you spend your hours with intention, even ordinary moments take on extraordinary meaning. A quiet cup of tea becomes a meditation. A short walk becomes a gift. An afternoon spent creating something becomes a celebration of being alive. It's not that you will never give your time to others again. You will and you should. But now you will give it from a place of abundance, not depletion. You will give it because you choose to, not because you feel you must. And that difference changes everything. When you show up on your own terms, your presence is more alive, more engaged, more generous. You are not rushing through the moment. You are in it. Time returning to you is not just about minutes on a clock. It's about the return of yourself to yourself. It's about reclaiming the pieces of your life that you lost in the constant shuffle of demands. It's about remembering that you are allowed to have days that are yours alone, hours that no one else touches, moments that are not for public consumption. And as you begin to live this way, you'll notice something else. People start to respect your time because you respect it. They stop assuming you will always be available. They start asking instead of demanding. They begin to see that your hours are valuable and that being given a piece of your time is a privilege, not a guarantee. That is the quiet reward of stepping back. You not only reclaim your time, you teach others how to honor it too. When you stop being endlessly available, the truth begins to reveal itself in ways that words could never have shown you. Some people will feel your absence and reach for you, not because they need what you can give, but because they miss you. Others will vanish into silence, not because they are suddenly busy, but because without your constant giving, you are no longer useful to them. This is the part of the journey that is both beautiful and heartbreaking. It is the unveiling of who was leaning on you for support and who was leeching from you for survival. For years, you may not have noticed the difference. Both types will come to you in need. Both types will take your time, your energy, your presence. Both types will say they appreciate you. But leaners stand with you when you need them. They balance the weight. They remember the times you've carried them and offer their shoulder in return. Leechers, however, have no memory for your sacrifices. They only remember their own needs. The signs were always there, but your constant availability made it easy for them to hide. They didn't need to show you their loyalty because you never asked them to. You were always there before the test could come. And so, without knowing it, you built relationships that had no foundation, connections where the only glue was what you provided. When you step back, when you stop rushing in to fix and soothe and solve, you give people a chance to reveal who they truly are. Leaners will notice the change. They will check on you. They will ask if you're all right. They may even feel concerned that you've been distant, not because they miss your service, but because they miss your spirit. Their love for you exists even when you're not actively doing something for them. Leechers, on the other hand, will feel your absence as an inconvenience. They may grow impatient. They may guilt you, reminding you of all you've done before, as if it were an unpaid debt you still owe. They may even become cold or resentful because your new boundaries mean they have to face the weight of their own problems without leaning entirely on you. At first, this realization hurts. It cuts deeply to see people you've poured so much into walk away the moment you're not a constant source. But this is the gift disguised in the pain. It's clarity. It's the knowledge of who you can truly count on when life turns. Leaners and leechers look the same when the sun is shining, but storms reveal the difference. A leaner will brace themselves against you, helping to keep you steady as you keep them steady. A leecher will cling to you in panic, pulling you under in their desperation to save themselves. They are not malicious always. They are simply unprepared to carry any weight but their own. When you stop being always available, you force people to adapt. Those who value you will adjust, finding ways to maintain the bond without constant contact. They will respect your boundaries and work within them. Those who only valued your accessibility will look elsewhere, seeking the next person who will offer endless yeses without limits. This is not about blaming others for needing help. We all need help at times. The difference lies in reciprocity. A healthy relationship is a dance of giving and receiving. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, sometimes you carry, and sometimes you are carried. But with leechers, you are always the one holding the weight. You become a pillar that cannot rest without the whole structure falling apart. That is not connection, it is captivity. The more you protect your time and energy, the clearer this division becomes. You will see how some people only reached out when they needed something. You will notice how your messages to them were often left unanswered unless a favor was involved. You will remember moments when you were hurting and they didn't show up, not out of cruelty, but because showing up wasn't in the nature of the relationship they had with you. This awakening is not meant to make you bitter. It is meant to make you free, because once you know who is leaning and who is leeching, you can give from a place of wisdom. You can offer your heart to those who will hold it with care. You can invest in relationships that pour into you as much as you pour into them, and you can release the ones that leave you empty without shame or guilt. One of the hardest truths to accept is that some of the people you have loved the longest may not be capable of being the friend, the partner, or the family member you need them to be. And that's okay. It doesn't erase the good memories. It doesn't make your past care a mistake. It simply means you now see them as they are, not as you hoped they would be. As you make peace with this, you also begin to cherish your leaners more deeply. You recognize the rare and sacred nature of someone who doesn't just take from you, but stands with you. You appreciate the quiet ways they've been there all along, the check-in calls, the listening ear, the way they've noticed your absence not as a lack of service, but as a change in the rhythm of connection. You begin to pour your energy into these people, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. You learn to say yes to those who would say yes to you without hesitation. And you stop apologizing for saying no to those who would disappear the moment you needed them. This is the alchemy of boundaries. They turn confusion into clarity. They turn resentment into discernment. And they turn relationships into choices rather than defaults. You are no longer bound to people out of habit or guilt. You choose them because they choose you. You also start to notice a shift within yourself. You no longer feel the constant anxiety of maintaining every connection at the expense of your own well-being. You no longer dread the phone ringing or the message notification, fearing another request you cannot refuse. You stand taller in your own life, knowing you are surrounded not by those who drain you, but by those who can stand beside you in equal measure. And here's the most surprising part. You may even find compassion for the leechers. You see that their constant taking comes from a place of emptiness, of not having learned how to stand on their own. You may still help them from time to time, but it will be on your terms, with clear limits, and without sacrificing yourself. You no longer try to fill their bottomless cup with your own soul. In the end, the distance you create by not being constantly available becomes a filter. It filters out dependency disguised as friendship, need disguised as love, and obligation disguised as loyalty. What remains is something purer, stronger, and infinitely more nourishing. When you finally know who was leaning and who was leeching, you carry no more illusions. You walk lighter, surrounded by those who truly walk with you. And that is the kind of company worth keeping for the rest of your life. There is a certain kind of tiredness that sleep cannot touch. It's the exhaustion that comes from carrying too many people, too many problems, too many unspoken burdens for far too long. You can rest your body, but when your mind and spirit have been drained day after day, you wake up tired. You walk through your own life like a ghost, giving pieces of yourself to everyone and wondering why there's nothing left for you. But then something shifts. You stop being everywhere for everyone. You stop answering every message the second it arrives. You stop rearranging your life for emergencies that aren't yours. You stop pouring from a cup that's been empty for years. And slowly, quietly, you begin to notice something you didn't expect. Your energy begins to rise. At first, it's almost unnoticeable. You don't leap out of bed like in a movie, but you find yourself breathing more deeply. You realize you're not as tense in your shoulders. You catch yourself humming a little while you cook. You notice your mind is less cluttered. Your patience stretches a little longer, and your thoughts feel lighter. It's not magic. It's the natural result of no longer bleeding out your energy into every open hand that reaches for you. When you keep yourself constantly available, your energy leaks in 1,000 tiny ways. A phone call in the middle of your quiet moment. A favor you said yes to even though you wanted to say no. A conversation where you listened for an hour and realized they never asked how you were. Every one of these moments chips away at your strength. You don't notice at first because you've trained yourself to run on low reserves. But the body knows, the spirit knows. And eventually, they both start to rebel. When you begin to set boundaries, that rebellion turns into restoration. Your body responds with gratitude to the stillness you've given it. Your spirit, once stretched thin, begins to fill out again. You stop feeling like a faded outline of yourself and start to remember the full, rich colors of who you were before you burned yourself out for the sake of being there for everyone. Your energy rising is not just about having more physical stamina. It's about having more life force. It's the way you feel when you're walking down the street and notice the wind on your face. It's the way you smile at someone without it feeling forced. It's the way your ideas start coming back to you because your mind finally has space to create instead of constantly firefighting other people's crises. You start to show up differently, not frantically, not with the edge of exhaustion in your voice, but with a grounded presence. People feel this shift, even if they can't name it. They notice you speak slower, listen deeper, and laugh more freely. They may not know that this is what happens when someone has stopped bleeding energy into places where it was never appreciated, but they feel it. There is also a spiritual clarity that comes when your energy is restored. You can sense when something or someone is about to drain you before it happens. You become more discerning. You no longer say yes out of guilt because you felt the cost of those yeses, and it's too high to keep paying. You learn to pause before committing, to ask yourself, does this align with where I am now? And if it doesn't, you walk away without apology. Your energy becomes magnetic when it rises, not because you are doing more, but because you are being more. When you're no longer exhausted, you stop blending into the background of your own life. You become a light that others notice, not because you are shining for them, but because you are shining from within. People often think energy comes from doing less, but in truth, it comes from doing more of what feeds you and less of what drains you. You can work hard and still feel vibrant if the work is aligned with your spirit. You can be busy and still feel alive if the busyness is made of things that matter to you. It's not about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming intentional. And here's the unexpected gift. When your energy rises, the quality of what you give to others improves. You no longer show up half present, running on fumes. When you say yes, you mean it. When you help, you give from a place of fullness. People can feel the difference between the version of you that is stretched thin and the version of you that has chosen to protect your vitality. You also stop feeling resentful. That's one of the clearest signs your energy has returned. Before, every request felt like another brick on your back, even if you smiled while saying yes. Now, because you are not overextended, you can give without bitterness. You can offer your time without secretly wishing you had kept it for yourself. This makes your relationships healthier because your giving is no longer tangled with quiet frustration. As your energy rises, you notice your own joy returning. Small things feel good again. You're more present in conversations. You remember to call people you care about, not because they need something, but just to connect. You have the capacity to dream again. Not vague, impossible dreams, but real visions for what you want to experience in your own life. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. You stop being addicted to exhaustion. You stop wearing your busyness like a badge of honor. You stop thinking that being drained means you are important. You realize instead that true importance is measured by how deeply you live, not by how endlessly you serve. Protecting your energy becomes second nature. You stop giving access to everyone. You start trusting your instincts about who can handle your light without trying to dim it. And you release the guilt that once came with saying no. You know now that every no you give to something that drains you is a yes to something that nourishes you. With your energy restored, your life changes in ways that are hard to put into words. It's not just that you feel better, it's that you are better. Better at loving, better at listening, better at living, because you are no longer running on the scraps of yourself, you are living from the whole. This is what happens when you step back from constant availability. Your spirit breathes, your mind clears, your body feels lighter. And from that place of wholeness, you rise. Not for anyone else's approval, but because rising is your natural state when you stop giving away everything that keeps you alive. When you stop chasing what isn't meant for you, the right things begin to find you. It's not magic, it's alignment. It's the quiet but powerful shift that happens when you stop forcing yourself into spaces where your presence is merely tolerated and start choosing only the spaces where your presence is valued. For too long, you might have tried to win over people who never truly saw you. You tried to earn a place in their world by being overly kind, overly accommodating, overly available. You bent yourself into shapes you didn't recognize, all in the hope that if you could just prove yourself enough, they would finally treat you with the love and respect you deserved. But the truth is, when you have to fight that hard to be honored, you are in the wrong place. When you finally step away from those dynamics, the world begins to shift around you. You start meeting people who don't need to be convinced of your worth, they simply recognize it. You find opportunities that don't demand you shrink yourself to fit, but instead invite you to expand. You notice that life begins to reflect back the way you now treat yourself, because that's where it begins, with you. You attract what honors you by first honoring yourself. That means you stop making excuses for people who continually show you they cannot or will not value you. It means you stop breaking your own heart by staying in situations where you're only half loved. It means you speak up when something doesn't sit right with you, even if your voice shakes. When you decide that you are worthy of respect, care, and truth, you naturally repel what doesn't align with that. The people who once fed off your silence or your willingness to overextend yourself will notice the change, and some won't like it. They may try to guilt you back into old patterns. They may call you selfish, distant, or difficult. But those words no longer stick when you know the truth. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it's sacred. The beauty of attracting what honors you is that it's not about pretending to be perfect or flawless. It's about being fully yourself without fear of rejection. It's about knowing that the right people will love you not for what you can give them, but for who you are when you're not trying to prove anything. And when you live from that place, you stop accepting the bare minimum. Your energy becomes a filter. You notice how your conversations feel after they end. Do they leave you lighter or heavier? You notice how you feel in certain spaces. Do you feel seen or do you feel invisible? You notice whether someone's presence calms your spirit or makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells. And when you feel the difference, you start choosing only what feeds your spirit. As this shift deepens, life begins to mirror it back in subtle but powerful ways. Suddenly, a friendship that has been one-sided for years quietly fades away, making room for someone who reciprocates your effort. A job that has drained you for too long ends, and a new opportunity appears, one that values your time, talents, and humanity. A partner who never really showed up is replaced by someone who meets you with consistency and care. These are not accidents. They are the result of you raising your own standard and refusing to lower it again. It's not always easy. There will be moments when it feels like you are losing more than you're gaining. When you walk away from people or situations that once filled your days, the emptiness can be uncomfortable. But that space is not a loss, it's preparation. It's the fertile ground where something real can take root. And you cannot grow the kind of relationships or opportunities that honor you if your life is still full of things that drain you. The more you live in alignment with your worth, the less tolerance you have for what dishonors it. You stop entertaining half-truths, half-effort, half-love. You stop bending your boundaries just to make someone else comfortable. And you stop seeing rejection as a reflection of your value. It becomes a reflection of alignment. If someone cannot honor you, they simply are not meant to be part of your inner circle. You attract what honors you because your energy sends out a clear signal. People can sense when you respect yourself. They can sense when you are not desperate for validation, when you are not afraid to walk away if something feels wrong. That quiet confidence draws in those who are capable of meeting you where you are. It also keeps away those who would only take advantage of you. And perhaps the most profound thing is this: you stop needing constant reassurance. You no longer cling to someone's presence out of fear they will leave, because you know that what is meant for you will not require you to beg, chase, or compromise your peace. You stop worrying about whether someone likes you and start asking yourself, do I like how I feel around them? When you live like this, your life begins to fill with people, places, and opportunities that reflect back the love and respect you have learned to give yourself. It doesn't mean every day is perfect, but it does mean you move through life with a deeper sense of stability. You know who you are, you know what you deserve, and because of that, you no longer settle for anything less. The truth is, the world responds to the standard you set. When you stop accepting crumbs, you make space for the feast. When you stop making yourself small, you attract people who can handle your full presence. When you stop chasing those who keep you at arm's length, you open the door to those who want to stand beside you. This is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's living in such a way that your very presence is an invitation for others to rise to meet you. And if they can't, you release them with grace, knowing that something better is always on its way. You attract what honors you when you decide that your life is too sacred to be spent proving your worth to those who cannot see it. And when you live from that place, you'll find that everything, love, friendship, work, peace, begins to feel lighter, freer, and more real than you ever thought possible. There comes a moment when something inside you shifts, not in a loud cinematic way, but in a quiet, undeniable click of truth. You finally see it. You finally understand. The people who mishandled you, overlooked you, or tried to diminish you were never a reflection of your worth. Their inability to see your value was not proof that it didn't exist. All it really meant was that they were not capable of recognizing what was right in front of them. You were always the prize. You just needed to remember. For so long, you may have lived as though your worth was a question waiting for someone else to answer. You might have bent yourself into uncomfortable shapes to please people who gave you crumbs in return. You may have chased approval like it was oxygen, waiting for someone's validation to make you feel like you belonged. You might have stayed in situations that hurt you simply because you were afraid that leaving would mean you were unwanted. And all along, you didn't realize that you were never supposed to convince anyone of your value. You were supposed to embody it. When this realization hits, it's both liberating and sobering. You begin to look back at the years you spent over-giving, over-apologizing, and over-explaining, and you see them for what they were, not proof that you were unworthy, but proof that you hadn't yet recognized that you already carried the thing you were searching for. You were the rare thing, the treasure, the gift. You were the steady hand in the storm, the safe place, the loyal heart. And not everyone deserved to have access to that. This is where everything starts to change. You stop moving through life as if you are auditioning for acceptance. You stop trying to shrink yourself so others feel more comfortable. You stop agreeing to terms that strip away your joy just for the sake of keeping the peace. You realize that being the prize isn't about arrogance or superiority. It's about knowing the depth of what you bring into the world and refusing to let it be mishandled. People can sense when you know your worth. They can feel the way you carry yourself, not in an inflated, prideful way, but in the grounded, unshakable way of someone who knows they have nothing to prove. You stop chasing those who run from you. You stop begging for love that must be begged for. And in doing so, you create a gravitational pull that draws in people who value you without condition. The truth is, when you don't see yourself as the prize, you hand over your power. You end up in cycles where you are constantly auditioning for the role of being chosen, instead of realizing that the right people will choose you without you needing to perform. But when you reclaim that truth, that you are the one bringing the value, the kindness, the stability, the light, everything shifts. You stop worrying about whether someone will pick you and start asking yourself whether they are worthy of the seat at your table. You begin to move differently. You notice when someone's words don't match their actions and you quietly step back. You recognize when your kindness is being taken for granted, and you stop giving unlimited access to those who only show up when it benefits them. You no longer try to prove that you are lovable, you simply know that you are, and in that knowing, you become unshakable. There will still be people who try to treat you as though you are replaceable. Some will even attempt to diminish you when they sense that you no longer bend as easily. But this time, instead of feeling the sting of rejection, you see it for what it is: misalignment. Their inability to value you does not diminish you. It simply disqualifies them from having you. Not everyone is meant to hold something rare. You also start to see how much time you wasted worrying about whether you were enough. Enough for who? Enough for what? Enough according to whose standard? You were always enough and more than enough. You were the one bringing warmth into cold rooms, the one who could find beauty in broken places, the one who held hope when everyone else gave up. If someone couldn't see that, it was never because it wasn't there. It was because their vision was too limited to recognize it. This shift also brings a new kind of peace. You stop trying to control outcomes or force connections. You no longer chase after what walks away because you trust that anything truly meant for you will not require you to beg for its presence. And that trust makes you magnetic. You radiate a calm, grounded energy that tells the world, I know who I am. I know what I deserve. I will not settle for less. Being the prize doesn't mean you are perfect. It doesn't mean you never make mistakes or that you are above growth. It means you recognize your inherent worth even when you are still evolving. You understand that you are a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. And you protect yourself accordingly, not by building walls out of fear, but by building gates with discernment. When you carry yourself like the prize, you no longer measure your worth by how much you're needed, how much you give, or how well you can hold everything together. You measure it by the truth that even if you stripped away your titles, your achievements, your possessions, you would still have value simply because you exist. And that is the kind of worth no one can take from you. As you live in this truth, you notice your standards rising. The conversations you once tolerated feel empty now. The relationships you once clung to feel too heavy to carry. You'd rather have fewer people in your life than fill your days with those who only pretend to care. You'd rather wait for what's real than settle for what's convenient. You'd rather protect your energy than spend it trying to convince someone to treat you with the respect you deserve. And here's the thing, when you finally know you're the prize, you stop fearing loss. You stop thinking that if someone leaves, it's the end of something irreplaceable. You understand that your value does not decrease just because someone failed to see it. You know that the right people will never require you to diminish yourself to be loved. And you also know that losing what doesn't honor you isn't a loss. It's a clearing for something better. This awareness seeps into every part of your life. In friendships, you look for mutual care, not one-sided effort. In love, you look for consistency, not empty words. In work, you look for environments that value your contribution, not places that exploit your dedication. And in your own relationship with yourself, you stop being your own harshest critic and start being your most loyal advocate. You begin to walk differently, shoulders back, head high, not in arrogance, but in quiet certainty. You speak differently. Your words carry the weight of someone who knows they are not asking for too much. They are simply asking for what is fair. You choose differently. You no longer take the first offer, the bare minimum, or the half-hearted attempt. You hold out for the thing that honors you fully. There's a freedom in this way of living. It's the freedom of knowing you don't have to chase what is already yours. You don't have to prove your worth to those who are blind to it. You don't have to bargain with your dignity just to keep someone in your life. You can walk away with grace because you know that you were always the blessing in the equation. And maybe that's the most beautiful part. You realize that even when others failed to honor you, you were still the one who brought the light, the love, the stability. You were the safe place, the constant, the one who gave without keeping score. You were the rare thing they didn't know how to hold. And now, instead of mourning that, you wear it like a crown. Because once you know you are the prize, you stop playing small. You stop letting fear make your choices. You stop settling for less than what you give. You live like someone who understands that their very presence is a gift, and you give it only to those who can receive it with the care it deserves. When you stop being available, you stop begging for a seat at tables that were never built for you. You become the table. You become the feast. You become the invitation. And those who come to you now come because they know you are worth the journey.